Oh. Okay, so welcome to Roy Talks. This month we are excited to have a wide variety of perspectives and voices in the gallery at Roy. People who make this sort of thing possible, our exhibitions and also our talks, are the funders, of course, Ohio Arts Council, Greater Columbus Arts Council, the Columbus Foundation. We're very grateful for their support of us in our mission to serve emerging artists. So we'll start a little bit just with an introduction. Each of the artists will talk a little bit about themselves and the artwork that you see in the gallery behind me, and maybe I'll be able to figure out how to point to things when they're talking. I don't know, I'm not very good at that. We'll see how it goes. So let's start off, and Lance, if you wouldn't mind getting us started.
Yes. Hi, how's everybody doing? My name is Lance Johnson. I'm an artist who was born and raised in New York and actually recently transplanted to Columbus, Ohio. I just fell in love with the art community here. My work is inspired by the urban environment and just the diversity and the vibrance of cities. You know, I want my work to represent the wide range of ideas and perspectives of the urban environment. So there's a lot of vibrant colors, there's a lot of words of inspiration, and I just want people to be inspired when they see my work and to appreciate the movement and vitality of cities.
Great, thank you. Lisa,
Yes.
can you follow up with that, or Tushar, whoever wants to go next? Yep.
Yeah, I would like to continue, and I just say that it's quite similar. It's more about urbanization, as I was speaking with Lennon. And so my name is Tushar. I have completed my graduation from printmaking and later on moved to a village called Chhattisgarh to complete my post-graduation, where I realized the nuances to staying in an urban jungle and what's happening right now with growing population, with growing buildings, and how it's affecting our personal lives. So after completing my master's and came back to my state, which is New Delhi, which is overcrowded and overpopulated, where I travel 3 hours a day in a metro, and I realized how people are going through a tough time every day and what are they missing. So the monkey in my image is always like a bridge between urbanization and the village, we can say. Yeah.
Nice.
My name is Lisa Farris. I'm from a suburb outside of Detroit in Michigan, and my work is not inspired by an urban landscape at all. Instead, I go into the woods to be inspired. I'm really interested in the concept in science right now that trees form communities. And I think of my work as figurative ceramic sculptures that sort of blur the line between what is human and what is nature. I do a lot of, what's the word, anthropomorphizing when I'm out in the woods. I've constantly seen trees with faces or bodies or eyeballs, that kind of thing. And that comes into my work, so.
That's great. Well, I'll say for the audience who'll be watching this when we post it on our YouTube channel, Roy is a juried space for emerging artists. And so these artists have applied to show their work here at Roy. And once the jurors have invited the work, then we put a curatorial team together to put work together in the exhibitions. And the curatorial team was responding to your overarching theme of connections, connecting to each other, connecting to the land, connecting to communities, and what that looks like. And so you're exactly right, Lisa, that yours is looking at it from another perspective, which we like here at Roy, different voices, different perspectives. But that was the connecting theme that sort of brought your work together. And I just love how it shows in the space also. There's similar, though you all create in different environments, there are similar patterns and similar images in the work that you do. So that's really interesting. So keeping with that, I'm curious about what you're seeing with your work as shown with other artists in the gallery. So Lisa, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about, because your work came in at the just
Yeah.
opened, so the other artist's work was already in the space, and you were remarking how your work had a connection to the other artists and their work.
Well, I think the most obvious, what struck me first off was how my palette is so similar to Tushar's palette, and yet I feel like the energy of my work matches the energy of Lance's work, if that makes sense. I think it looks lovely together. I feel like Tushar's work you want to get closer to and delve into, and it's a like a quieter experience, whereas Lance's work just, you know, grabs you right away. So, and with my own work, it's always really great to see. I show my work a lot. I do a lot of outdoor art fairs and shows like that, where you're in a tent or you're in a booth, and it felt great to see the work in more of a gallery space. And I felt like it had impact. It was dramatic, but also like Tushar's work, if you get closer to my pieces, you start seeing the different layers of texture, pattern. What I do with glazes is pretty detailed. So it kind of has that back and forth experience of being something bold that you see out here, and then something that you want to spend time with.
Absolutely. I'd like to add to that too. Like you said, the soulfulness of each of our work is so apparent, you know. It's but also the way that the pieces evolve, right? And it forces you to look closely. You know, that's always been my idea of art, creating those layers where a piece, you can see a piece once and then you see it again and you'll discover something new. I felt the same way looking at your art as well and Tushar's work as well, like just having to take time and spend time with the work. I feel like that connects all of us together.
Yeah, I also was surprised and delighted, Lance, that your work is it's that I love work that does this when it presents as a painting, but it's an object as well. You know, the big piece on the wall with the layers of canvas, like how is that not a sculpture, right?
Exactly. Thank you.
And the playing around with different unconventional shapes, the using the wood and the depth and texture you get from putting pieces of wood together instead of just a traditional flat canvas surface. Really interesting for me as somebody that works. And to flip that, a lot of times, I think my pieces sort of, even though they're sculptures, I feel like they are, they can almost function like a painting. Like you don't necessarily need to walk all the way around it. It can just be a presence like in the corner of a room. So it's just interesting to show your work with people that are using different mediums and see both the likenesses and the interesting differences of what that medium gets for you.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't be in Ohio. So I just wanted to see your work, both of your work. But visually, what I have realized that Lance's work is so much overwhelming and it has so energy, it's beautiful energy is there. And after this speaking with you, I got to know about the concept and how I'm relating with urbanization. So it's really nice.
Thank you.
And Lisa's work, that's your name? Sorry if I'm not. Yeah, Lisa. Yes, Lisa's work, as you can say, it has more depth, or I don't know if it's the correct word for this, but it's more quiet. And I just want to give more time to her work.
Yeah.
Because I'm expecting some more detailings and more depth in it. Yeah.
So Tushar, your work, talk to me, if you don't mind, about the fact that it is, what do you find working in a palette that is so monochromatic? Because that's essentially what I'm trying to do too. And I find that it presents different challenges and different interests. I wonder if you find that as well.
back in time, I used to practice with colors a lot.
Mhm.
But after that, I don't know. That's what infatuated me: the darkness, the depth, and the velvety tones of mezzotint. It's really lovely.
It is really
I've
lovely.
It is.
Yes,
Yeah.
because uh, I've tried etching, dry point. These are different mediums of printmaking,
Mm.
but the soft velvety tones I'm getting in it is impossible to get in any another medium.
Mm. Mhm.
So it's about the technique. The second thing is uh, the subject and the story is quite dark. It's not about being happy and sunshine and rainbows. I'm
Right.
talking about the nuances and the bad things which are happening every day. So
Yeah.
so I'm expecting it to be more dark and silent.
Yeah. I
And
feel
this
like,
was, yeah,
for me, using a monochromatic, I also have a lot of work that is colorful, and using a monochromatic palette for me really forced me to think about form and texture, and what that, like how you can bring interest, that it doesn't always have to be color,
Mm.
yeah.
and that it makes you see the form more, to have it just be all grays, black, white, in that color.
And for me, the reasons I tend to use a lot of vibrant colors in my work is because I'm always thinking about how the inner city is always depicted negatively, right? And
Yeah.
through media, through things we see on TV. And I'm always thinking of young people who live in those environments. Like I grew up in the Bronx, in the projects, in the Bronx, New York, and it was a beautiful community, but from the outside, it seems scary, right? So I like to incorporate these vibrant colors, these beautiful colors, because when I was walking to the train station to go to school, I would see this graffiti, and it's always represented in a negative light, right? And for me, I saw inspiration in that, and I want kids to see inspiration in my work. So I'm always thinking about young people and how they can interact with my pieces and just celebrate where they come from,
Mhm. Mhm.
So is there any particular reason why people see this negatively? And I mean, I don't know about the conditions about Bronx or anything.
Yeah, I think, it's lower economic situations, a lot of condensed populations, and things happen in cities that make people scared, right? But if you live in that environment, right, it's your community, right? And there's beauty there, right? And there's nuance to it. And you don't often see that portrayed in other ways, right? It's most often portrayed negatively, and I want to just try to reshape that a little bit with my work.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We were having those discussions earlier today. There were some visitors in the gallery, and we were talking about how much of the artist is in the work that the artist is making, right? And so Lance is talking about his connection to his community and lifting it up through his art. And Lisa's talking about reconnecting with, the earth and our place in it and how much we have in common with it. And Tushar is pointing out cities and those experiences too, isolation, but also community. So how much of what you're doing is influenced by what you're experiencing now, and how much has your work changed over the past couple of years when we've really been having to prioritize finding time for work, finding a way to be creative, finding, in some cases, materials to create with. So I'm just kind of curious about your thoughts on that.
So
on you.
I feel like for me, probably the most dramatic change was the pandemic itself. And this is going to sound odd, but I had a studio that I complained about for years in my basement that felt like a dungeon. And the pandemic rolled around and we couldn't leave our houses. And I was so grateful that I had this crappy studio in my basement, right? And It was, and that was the first summer was such a terrible summer. Like, I mean, really, it wasn't just the pandemic. It was the Black Lives Matter, everything that was happening. And for me, being able to work in my home daily was such an outlet. And I found nature was also a huge outlet, being able to go someplace beautiful and outdoors and in nature. And I found that weirdly, you couldn't do art fairs, you couldn't do shows. Like, this was it, just going in my basement and making stuff. And I found myself taking on, like, working in ways that were, for want of a better word, more tedious, like allowing myself to take more time with each sculpture. I wasn't just knocking out inventory, because I suddenly felt like I had all the time in the world. There was no social life. There was no, you know what I mean?
Right.
I'm not sure I'm articulating this well.
No,
And so,
absolutely.
so it changed my work in that I was like, okay, I'm going to do a piece with, you know, a million little petals that's going to take way too long to do, but who cares, because I have time. And it was such a sanctuary, you know, like, it was so soothing to me to be able to work. So I guess it wasn't so much, I was still working on the same ideas and the same content, but how the pandemic changed how I worked, where I allowed myself more time for each piece, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And are you?
And for me, I'm sorry, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Are you planning those pieces out? Are you sketching first before you?
I always sketch.
Okay.
I always sketch. But like, it's sort of a loose sketch, and then it just sort of flows from there, you know, if that makes sense.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Lance, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the pandemic, which was such a scary moment for all of us, obviously, but it also showed the power of art and how important art is, right? From people being stuck at home and noticing their walls, right?
Yeah.
More,
right.
right? And realizing that they needed that art for inspiration, but also music and just a variety of different things. So I thought the silver lining was the appreciation of art more for people who didn't necessarily appreciate it enough. And also for me in my practice, I'm always looking for interesting canvases, right? I've had amazing opportunities to paint a variety of different things, from pianos to cars to I want to get into more sculptural work as well. So I'm always trying to think outside the rectangle when I create pieces, right? So that always keeps me inspired on finding things. So I'll find like windows and doors and gates and just try to figure out ways to convey a message in those pieces, you know?
That's cool.
Right.
And that's
Indeed, yes. Yeah, sorry, please continue.
good.
So, yes. So indeed, it was a very bad time, but I somewhere found the inspiration in the lockdown, because I know many people have started working out, they started writing, they started painting in lockdown. Yes, they got so much time. And some of my works, they still narrates the story of pandemic, that when it is going to end, because we are seeing dead bodies every day and people are dying. So yes, some of my works says that, but what I feel right now, after pandemic, we have somewhere grown from inside, that how can we use that time for introspection and how much we can grow. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah. No, that's true. We've often had those conversations about, even how in those times we prioritize, right? What did you make time for? That's what's important to you. But some artists have shared how their practice has changed, either because they did not have a studio in their home, or they made a studio in their home. They had to get to their studio. They found ways to do that. But even supply chain issues have sort of influenced the materials that artists are using. We have an artist who works with a lot of yarn, and she was saying that, during the pandemic, so many people took up knitting that it was hard for her to find the yarn that she wanted. She had to change how she created the work she did. So yeah, it's very interesting, that's for sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about your practices, and Lance, something that you said made me start to think about that. What comes first, the idea that you have or the material that you find? And so if you can talk a little bit about that, as you were saying, a window or a picnic table most recently, or
Absolutely.
whatever. So are you trying to find other objects, or in your head, you're thinking of something that would just be perfect if only you could find an abandoned footstool or something? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So my motto is always the world is a canvas, right? So I'm always looking for different materials. It's not a specific thing I'm looking for. I kind of keep it open-minded, and I want to discover new things to paint, right? So I'm thinking about, connecting plywood and figuring out ways to make that look three-dimensional, sculptural, so I'm always trying to think outside the rectangle. That's always my motto. So it's never one particular thing that I'm looking for. I try to do different things. For instance, I had the opportunity to do a live painting at One World Trade Center in New York. And it was for their sustainable month, right? So I was trying to figure out, trying to find found materials in New York to paint during this 2-day event. And it was amazing. And I actually found one of the partitions that they were using for outside eating, right? Outside dining, which was huge in New York. It was like a lifeline for the restaurant industry in New York. And I got one of these partitions, and I was able to paint it in that space. So it was sort of like, trying to, again, find inspiration in the darkness of the pandemic, and also trying to find, provide inspiration for people in a dark time, So again, always just trying to think outside that box and find materials that could be interesting and fun to create on. So yeah, that's my process.
Yeah, thank you. Tushar, can you talk a little bit about your process? I wasn't familiar with your medium.
Sure. So Mezzotint is a printmaking process which was invented around 1916 around by Ludwig von Siegen. And so we just take a copper plate and uses a tool called rocker. It has a sharp teeth on it, and we just create a small dots on the plate. We just create the whole surface and roughen the whole plate. Later on, we just polish the area where we need more light. It's called burnisher. So you just scrape the surface and makes it more smoother. Later on, we just put some ink on it with the roller. We wipe the extra ink, put a paper on it, and we just took the print like other printmaking mediums of etching and lithography. Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah, that explains, you, as you were saying, those softer moments, but that details Lisa was talking about, people do when they come into the gallery. And I knew this would happen, which is why I chose that wall for your work. You're just walking toward it to see what is going on there. And once you get there, you're just amazed by everything that you're able to see. So it's a lot more forgiving of a medium than I thought it would be, as you explain it. Of course, if I did it, it would be terrible, but
it's so much time taking.
Yeah.
Right.
It's so laborious and time taking.
Do you not use any sort of, I did a little printmaking in undergrad.
Oh, nice.
You don't use any sort of acid? It's all like a physical.
No.
So
yes, Lisa.
Burnishing or
Wow.
Or,
yes, it's the best part of Mezzotint that it's a non-toxic medium. We don't need any acid or any harmful thing.
So it's all
we just sit down. Yes.
Physically. Wow. That's awesome.
Wow. That is amazing.
Yeah. And that would lend itself very nicely to the pandemic, where you wouldn't want to be,
Yes.
in your home with a lot of chemicals and that sort of thing. So that's really interesting. Yeah.
The whole series was created in pandemic, actually.
Ah,
Wow. So
That's
cool.
what I would say. It was motivating for me.
Yes, right, exactly.
Love that.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Although I have made some good biceps just because of using this tool. There's a huge difference
Added
between
benefit.
right and
Added
left arm.
benefit.
Yeah, well, the same with ceramics. I mean,
Yeah.
you're in there. Yeah,
the schlepping alone, right?
Oh yes.
a big
Absolutely.
block of clay. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
So my process, I always do start with drawings, sketching. And I find that I get really attracted to different plants or trees. Just to your, I guess it's right. Yeah. So the Joshua tree right over there. That piece, I had gone with my family on a hike to Joshua Tree National Park. And I don't know if you've ever seen one of these. They're not actually trees, they're yucca cacti, I guess. And we hit it where it was in full bloom, and it's spectacular, like so over the top. And I loved in particular the contrast between, they have like these real spiky leaves, cactus-like spiky leaves with these really lush blossoms when they're in full bloom. And so I did a series of vessels or vases that play off of that.
Yeah.
And the pieces behind you are made in parts. The one to your left with stripes, that to me those are like petals, almost like a jade plant. And to the right there's a different kind of tree that has their seed pods are like the creepy hands that you see coming out of it. So I start with some sort of theme. There's another piece in the gallery that's like milkweed pods almost. And then I sort of make people out of them in my mind, like a head, these are hands, body, legs. And then I just add layers of texture and what I think is interesting. The pieces are all made in parts. So my studio, like I start off with an idea that this is what it's going to look like, but inevitably, as I start building and glazing the pieces and stacking them up into one whole, inevitably there's a point where I'm like, oh, I need one more petal here, or I need, so I go back and I make, or I dig through this inventory of bits and parts of pieces. Okay. Like I have a stash, if you will. So every step of it for me feels like a process of invention or creativity. Like the drawing is of the initial invention of it, and then I make the pieces, and then I glaze the pieces, and then I finally put it all together. And even that is sort of like mixing and matching and deciding what order they really should go in.
Oh, that's interesting.
Nice.
It's so much fun. I love it.
Well, I have to confess, I love that they are life size, because it really does bring home the point that it is our connection and plants as people and our DNA connection to plants, right? But I have to say, every month, the gallery changes. And so I have to change how I walk through the gallery. And every time I come out of the back room, because it's like a person is standing there. A couple of nights ago, I was driving by the gallery and I was like, who is in the gallery? No one can people, odd people. So, yes, but they are, I mean, awesome. Yeah, it's like being with other people in the gallery. I don't feel alone.
There was a novel that I read called The Overstory by Richard Powers. I don't know if anybody's heard of it. It's pretty renowned. And the whole book is essentially, it's exploring sort of trees as communities, for want of a better word. And that was it just fueled my imagination. And there really is, there's a woman that's, he based a character in the novel off of a woman who wrote the book Finding the Mother Tree. She's a researcher in British Columbia, and she's discovered that all of the way that we've been doing forestry over the years, it has been kind of backwards, like wrong, that trees really are, it's not survival of the fittest per se, it's that trees are connected and they look out for each other. Like if there's a giraffe comes and starts eating the leaves of a tree, the trees let off a scent to warn the other trees.
Oh,
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
Wow.
That is amazing.
And there's like, that's just one example, but there's this whole connection that is
Yeah, you see that.
astonishing.
You see that connectivity through when the roots weave together, right, of different trees.
It's a micro fungus or something that they're actually
Yeah,
underground, that these forests are connected. And
absolutely.
yeah, so.
Well, think of all the things they do for us. They help purify our air and,
Yep.
you know, and in
The
the,
medicinal
They are
value,
essential.
yeah.
when we were all shut down and at home, look what nature did. Look how things started to come back and grow again. And, you know, the fog.
Right, isn't that incredible? Yeah.
Incredible. Yeah. You know,
Absolutely.
whales coming back and trees coming back. And I mean, yeah, it's amazing. What are humans doing?
Absolutely.
This makes me more curious to see Lisa's work more closely now.
Ah,
Yeah.
I mean,
yes. Yeah, see, and now there's even more layers to that interconnectivity between
Yeah.
all of you and your work. So I am wondering about that, and you're creating your work and how you're finding time for that, and where are you getting inspiration for your work? Are there some artists that you're following or something you're reading or listening to? What are you doing to feed yourself so that you can create?
Yeah. For me, music is essential to my practice. I like to listen to a lot of jazz, a lot of hip hop. That energy feeds my work. And just the process alone, I love creating. Like for me, the most important thing is the process, right? And how it makes me feel, right? So I'm always figuring out ways to create. I'm always getting in that studio and working on 5 paintings at a time, you know, and just moving around and flowing. And it just, you get in that zone, right? For me, it's a zone that I get into, and, you know, I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm just thinking about, different techniques to use and different mediums and spray paint on acrylic, and, you know, finding like wires and to connect for textures and just different things that keep me motivated to create, you know.
Where do the words come from that you integrate into your work? Do those come from the songs you're listening to, or the music is evoking those words for you, or where does that come from?
Yeah, I always feel like words are the soul of my paintings, right? And I think it's from when I studied journalism in school. And, you know, the words have power, and, you know, we learned that early, right? And also affirmation, right? You know, the words you use, and you can manifest things with positivity or negativity, right? So I think of, again, young people walking by a piece that I have and seeing the word motivation or seeing the word peace, and hopefully that resonates with them, you know? So it's always me just like trying to reinforce positive and inspirational words to young people.
Yeah, great. Tushar, can you follow up with that?
Yeah, I'm not a very constant reader. As you can see, only 3 books are there in my shelf, and all 3 belongs to Mezzotint. Seriously, one is from Carol Weitz, second one is Art Wogger, and third one is Agi Langevin, is a Canadian printmaker, and I just adore his work. So I read a lot about Mezzotint, and secondly, I just take inspiration from my daily life. What I see from my surroundings. I just travel a lot because my studio is around 3 hours away from my home, where I stay.
Wow.
So yes, so I travel a lot, and what I see in Delhi metros, trains, on streets, it always influenced me every time.
Thus the subway cars and the transportation,
Yes.
those powerful images of those paws,
Hanging hands.
hands.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I totally
Very
see
powerful.
what you're doing. Yeah. Really powerful. Yeah.
I got very different reviews about. Yes.
Do you
Lisa.
draw? Do you draw first, or is it immediately like the drawing is the method?
To be honest, I don't draw much. I sketch a lot, but not regarding my work. I just visualize it, that how it's going to look at the end. And I just make a quick sketch on the plane just before the starting my work.
Gosh.
That's,
So the
this
drawing
thing
is
is going to be.
actually the immediacy of
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Right.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Wow.
It's very organic and it's very unplanned, to be honest.
Mhm.
Lisa, do you sketch out your structures?
I
Or
do.
the way
I
you want
sketch
them?
all the time. I spend a lot of time at botanical gardens and you know, in hiking in woods, that, you know, just that whole natural scenery.
Yeah.
And then from those drawing sessions, I invent these sculptures. But I also have to say that the medium of clay itself is a constant source of inspiration. And I guess what I mean by that is there are so many contemporary ceramics right now. There are so many different things being done in unexpected ways with clay as a medium. And so there are times where an idea just comes from me wanting to try a different hand building technique. You know, like you build with slabs of clay, you build with coils of clay, you build with pinching clay. And sometimes I'm just in the mood to try, like I'm going to coil something. And then the idea kind of grows out of that.
Yeah.
So it's a remarkable medium, you know, like it's just endless.
As you all are talking, I'm struck by how much history is involved in your work, the mediums of it, how long we have been producing work by drawing, by molding clay, by marking surfaces, and just the rich history of each of your mediums, and you know, who's come before you, right? And who will come after you. And so your work is influencing other people too. So that's really exciting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great.
Even the first Bible was printed with the printmaking technique.
See?
With woodcut
Right.
medium.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I mean, graffiti started in the caves, right? Cave paintings, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's
That's awesome.
So,
Right. The hunt. Yeah, exactly.
absolutely.
Very interesting. Well,
Yeah.
I do want to leave time for, I love this discussion and asking each other questions. I want to leave time for any questions that you have, but I also want to leave time for you to talk about what's next for you. Lance, I happen to know, has a happy hour here next week with Dr. Lomax, who's going to be performing, and there'll be some live painting, which will be great fun. But I'm sure you have exhibitions maybe coming up, or so what's next?
Yeah. For me, I have, again, I'm looking forward to the live painting with Mark. I love doing multidisciplinary projects, right? So I love collaborating with dancers, with drummers like Mark, and DJs, and just figuring out ways to weave all of our creativity together. So have that going. I do have an exhibit in the Short North coming up with Marsha Evans Gallery. I'm looking forward to that. And I'm going to be doing some traveling as well. I got the opportunity in March of 2023 to travel to Uzbekistan for an art residency. And just, again, promoting my culture, hip hop culture, and doing workshops with locals there. And hopefully the location will inspire some next level art that I'm creating. So I'm looking forward to that. And just keeping, doing community projects. I'm doing workshops here, and just, trying to stay busy.
That's good. Yeah. I wonder what found objects you'll find in Uzbekistan. We'll have to look.
Absolutely. For sure. For sure.
Tushar, how about you? What's next?
Actually, we're experimenting with some new mediums. regarding printmaking also. Yes, and I'm just continuing this series, which focuses more on pandemic and life after pandemic, in which I've asked people to write their story in 1 or 2 lines on an MDF board who are traveling every day in metro. How would you expect and how would you narrate everything? What happened? And later on, I will just carve their words and just take a print of it in a curtain.
Wow.
So it's a quite interesting experimenting work, but I'm not getting very good response. Some people are very much pissed off, and they say, "Oh, we don't know to write anything. Just go away." So it's quite hectic. I'm still struggling with the medium, but you see.
Yeah, that's good. I remember years ago, Coda did that here where they reached out to local artists to write poetry and then installed those poems on public transit. And there is something
Wow.
about that where you're on it for a while, you inspired by something, it makes you think of other things. So that's very cool. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Good. Lisa, how about you? School.
Right. So in terms of the work itself, I feel like I have these forms that are individual, like, what am I trying to say? They're individual pieces.
Mhm.
And what I'm hoping to do is create more of an environment with the pieces. So is it 2 figures that interact? Is it a room of pieces or figures that are connected, as opposed to just singular sculptures? So that's sort of my goal creatively, like with what the work is going to do. And then personally, I'm actually starting an MFA program on September 13th, first day of school at Cranbrook Academy.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Nice. Congratulations.
thank you.
Yeah.
It's
Congratulations.
yeah, it kind of came out of, I had done a residency last fall for a month in Hambridge, the Hambridge Center in the North Georgia mountains. And the intensity of that experience, having an entire month completely unplugged, there was no Wi-Fi. There was a landline phone that I could only get incoming phone calls. I couldn't make outgoing phone calls.
Wow.
And
Wow.
this was in my studio, and it was so just, like there was a lot of like, how is this going to feel? And it felt great. Like, I loved it. I thought I was going to have such a hard time unplugging and being alone, and it wasn't. It was just great. And I came home and thought, how can I replicate the intensity of that experience? And that led to, I applied to a bunch of other residencies and grad schools, and just did a lot of, put a lot of things out there, and then decided when the Cranbrook acceptance came in, decided that was going to be the next path. So it's a 2-year program.
Oh, that's
Awesome.
exciting.
Yeah.
That is.
All the best.
Yeah. Good luck with that for sure.
That'll be great. I think that's so exciting and terrifying at the same time.
Right. Exactly. I have a funny story to tell. I had to set up my like the intranet, and I had to come up with a password, and I came up with the idea, so original, be brave, right? And
Yes.
it was already taken. Isn't that great? So it was such a great thing to go.
Yeah.
I guess we're all kind of feeling this way, like we're all taking this leap of like,
Yeah.
this anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Be brave too, hardly can. Yeah.
I know, right?
Yeah. That's awesome.
How about be fearless?
Yeah, there you go.
I bet you
That
that
works.
too.
That's probably taken too.
That's
Yeah.
what we are all thinking, right?
Yeah, that's
sure.
it's so exciting and terrifying at the same time. So that's wonderful. I'm so glad. Well, I'm wondering, where Roy fits into the continuum of what it is that you all are doing. What did you learn here about your work? What did you learn about, I don't know, galleries or the experience, or how did that, help you to the next level, or did it?
Yeah.
I'd say that a lot of these things, like even when I was doing my residency, the coordinator, the woman that took care of us, basically, she started by saying that there was some study done that and I don't know how they could figure this out, but the gist of it was that what comes out of your residency experience, you don't really feel until like 5 years down the line, which I thought was wow. And I guess I feel like that's sort of, for me, the immediate thing was to see my work in the context of a gallery with these other great artists. Like that was really affirming, validating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to say, as somebody coming into Columbus community and seeing what your art community is doing was really interesting to me and exciting that exists for you. And
Absolutely.
and you know, in
Collaborative. We
Yeah.
say that all the time. And I think, I mean, I'm appreciating what you're saying. I think we take it for granted. Oh, doesn't everyone just work with each other and collaborate, and but the
It's
more
so,
conversations I have, the more that's not true.
yeah, Detroit is
Yeah.
a much larger land area, and there are a lot of arts going on, but it didn't feel like this felt so specific for
Uh-huh.
me.
Yeah. I would say the same thing, you know, coming from New York, there are a lot of like pockets
Yeah.
of collaborative spaces for artists, right? But this is, like you said, it's so interwoven and connected here that that's what I fell in love with coming here, you know, just how collaborative all the artists are, and how they're constantly working together and bouncing ideas off each other. I love that. And again, putting our work in the context with other artists and creating those dialogues is what I loved about this exhibit with Roy. I love how you guys were intentional in putting us all together.
Yeah.
And I see the similarities in our work, you know, even though they're different styles, right? There's a soulfulness that weaves through all of our work. And
Yeah.
it was an honor to be a part of it, for sure.
The curatorial team will really appreciate that, because they worked very hard on it. It took us about 6 weeks of meetings.
Wow.
And, you know, planning out different shows, and we all came to it with our list of shows, and then we chatted with each other about what this and that, and then I feel like, yeah, just came up with a really great slate. So that I'm appreciating what you're here. What you're
Yes.
saying.
Absolutely, for sure.
It happened with me also, because validation is the correct word for me, because I was not expecting that my work is worthy enough to be a part of such kind of a show. And in India, it's not at that level. We have just started of such kind of collaborative space, and yeah, so we are still struggling with that. But I'm glad that I can be a part of this beautiful show.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, we just launched Greater Columbus Arts Council, who's one of our funders, but just a really wonderful advocacy group for artists here in Columbus, has just launched something that's a passport program. So you get a passport, a booklet of different creative spaces around the city, and you can visit them, and they have stickers that are designed by local artists. And then the stickers, you get so many, and they get into a drawing for prizes. It's a wonderful program, and I love it. And it only lasts September and October each year. But at the end of the day, it's a really wonderful resource moving forward for places for you to visit. So those kinds of collaborative things where we're, you know, shining a light on different creative spaces in the community is really important. So I hope that you'll continue along that path, Tushar, where you're collaborating with other artists, because we really are better together. You know, it needs
100%.
not pie. It's all about rise, right? So put that out in the universe that you want that to happen, and it will come back to you. I'm convinced of it. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, we're coming up close to our time. I usually try and keep these at about an hour, and we're recording this, of course, and then we're going to place this on our YouTube channel where people can see it. But any last questions or comments or things that you want to share before we wrap things up for today?
Lynette, I just want to thank you for your support in this this exhibit. You know, it's always a pleasure to be in that space. And I love what you're doing. And again, I'm excited to be a part of the Columbus art community. Again, collaboration is so important to me, and community is so important to me as an artist. So keep doing what you guys are doing for sure.
So maybe collaboration will work its way into one of your paintings coming up. That word would be really great, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. For sure.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
All right, great. Well, thank you all so much for just sharing your time and your perspectives. I've really learned so much about you and your work. And for me, it makes it a lot better. I love being in the space with your work and sharing this with other people. So I so appreciate the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank
It's been
you.
great.
Same here.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure meeting all of you.
Good to meet you.
Yeah, pleasure to meet you. And I'm sure hopefully we'll cross paths again
I hope so.
Sure, sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
All right, now get back to the studio. You've got stuff to do.
That's right. We got work to do.
Yes, sure.
Take
All right,
care.
thanks
Take it
all.
I gotta read some more books. Yeah.
easy.
That's awesome. All right, thank you all.
Bye-bye. Take care.